from reporting and monetary handling to full broker oversight. As we move forward from Section 29, where we focused on monetary handling and reporting in property management agreements, we now step into the larger supervisory framework that makes all of those systems work: broker supervision and control. If Section 29 explained how money must be handled, protected, and reported, Section 31 explains who must supervise those activities, review the documents, monitor compliance, and make sure the entire property management operation is functioning within Arizona law. In other words, Section 29 dealt with the systems, while Section 31 deals with the broker who must control those systems. Under AAC, R428-1103, an employing broker and a designated broker must exercise reasonable supervision and control over the activities of brokers, salespersons, and others employed by the broker. This is one of the most important rules in Arizona real estate because it makes clear that supervision is not passive. A broker cannot simply hire agents, open trust accounts, and hope everything is handled correctly. The broker must actively establish and enforce written policies, procedures, and systems that guide how the brokerage operates. Reasonable supervision includes reviewing and managing transactions that require a real estate license, as well as the use of contracts, disclosure forms, and employment agreements. This ties directly back to Sections 27, 28, and 29, where we covered property management agreements, material terms and conditions, and monetary handling. Those agreements and reports do not supervise themselves. The designated broker must ensure that the documents used in the brokerage are complete, compliant, and properly handled. The rule also requires the broker to manage the filing, storing, and maintenance of documents related to transactions, handle trust funds properly, and oversee the use of unlicensed assistants. This ties directly back to our earlier discussions on trust account liability, signatories, and document retention. The broker is not only responsible for creating policies on paper, but also for making sure those policies are actually followed in real-world practice. Another major part of supervision is the broker's duty to oversee delegation of authority. This is especially important in property management, where brokers often delegate duties involving rent collection, trust account access, tenant communication, maintenance coordination, and document preparation. The rule makes it clear that delegation is allowed, but supervision must remain in place. This connects directly back to Section 26 on ARS, paragraph 22-2174C, where we emphasize that authority may be delegated, but liability remains with the broker. A designated broker must also familiarize salespersons and associate brokers with federal, state, and local laws related to real estate practice. In the property management setting, this includes the Arizona Landlord-Tenant Act, fair housing requirements, advertising rules, trust account statutes, and record-keeping requirements. Training is not just a courtesy, it is part of supervision. A broker who fails to educate agents and staff creates avoidable risk for the entire brokerage. R428-1103 also requires the broker to review and inspect documents that may materially affect the rights or obligations of a party to a transaction, as well as advertising and marketing used by the broker and licensees in the broker's employ. This is where supervision becomes highly practical. Property management agreements, leases, amendments, notices, trust account reports, maintenance records, and final accountings all have the potential to affect the legal rights of owners and tenants. Advertising also creates risk when broker identification is missing, claims are misleading, or fair housing principles are ignored. In property management, this means the broker should be reviewing several categories of items on a regular basis. The broker should review property management agreements to confirm that they contain required terms such as service descriptions, beginning and end dates, handling of tenant deposits, reporting frequency, and renewal or termination provisions. The broker should also review trust account documentation to ensure proper signatory authority, reconciliations, and deposit handling. This directly connects to Sections 22 through 29, where we built the financial side of the property management operation piece by piece. Leases and tenant agreements must also be reviewed to make sure they are legally compliant and consistent with Arizona law. Maintenance and repair records should be monitored to ensure repairs are documented, vendors are tracked, and safety issues are addressed. Financial reporting should be checked for accuracy and timeliness, especially monthly and annual statements, reconciliations, and final accountings for terminated management agreements. Fair housing procedures must also be reviewed to ensure tenant screening, advertising, and leasing practices are consistent and non-discriminatory. Advertising deserves special attention because Arizona has very specific rules in this area. AAC R4-28502 requires advertising to clearly and prominently identify the employing broker, prohibits blind ads, and requires accurate claims and representations. Social media, websites, emails, and texts related to real estate services or property are all considered advertising when they target Arizona residents. That means property managers and brokers must treat even quick online posts as regulated activity. This ties directly back to the broader supervision rule because designated brokers must supervise all advertising by those working under their license. The rule also works alongside AAC R4-28503B, which requires written disclosure of the terms, costs, conditions, restrictions, and expiration date of an offer of a premium before a person participates. This reinforces a broader supervision principle. Advertising and promotional activity must not only be visible and truthful, but also fully explained. In property management, that could apply to incentives, leasing promotions, or other offers tied to rental activity. The consequences of poor supervision can be significant. Advertising violations, trust account issues, poor documentation, mishandling of security deposits, unauthorized entry, or fair housing violations can result in letters of concern, fines, license suspension, or even revocation. What makes this especially important is that ADRI may hold both the individual licensee and the designated broker responsible. That reinforces the central message of this section. Supervision is not optional, and the broker must build systems that allow oversight to happen consistently. As we tie this section back to Section 29, the progression becomes very clear. Section 29 focused on how funds and reporting should be handled inside the property management agreement. Section 31 now places that entire process under the broker's supervision umbrella. The money, the reports, the agreements, the advertising, the trust accounts, the leases, and the staff all fall under one larger obligation: reasonable supervision and control. In Arizona property management, it is not enough to have good forms or good systems. The designated broker must actively monitor and enforce them. Online discussion. Why is broker supervision considered the foundation of compliance in property management? Answer: because the broker is responsible for making sure agreements, funds, advertising, records, and staff activities all comply with Arizona law and ADRI rules. How does broker supervision connect to trust account handling and financial reporting? Answer: the broker must establish systems that control how money is received, deposited, reconciled, reported, and documented, and then actively monitor those systems. Why is advertising included in broker supervision under Arizona law? Answer: because advertising can mislead the public, violate fair housing rules, or omit required broker identification, creating legal and regulatory risk for both the licensee and the broker. Multiple choice questions. What does AAC R4-281103 require a designated broker to establish? Written policies, procedures, and systems for supervision. Answer: written policies, procedures, and systems for supervision. What must a designated broker review and inspect under the rule? Documents that may materially affect the rights or obligations of a party and advertising used by the brokerage. Answer: documents that may materially affect the rights or obligations of a party and advertising used by the brokerage. What is one major consequence of poor broker supervision? Possible fines, discipline, suspension, or revocation of a license. Answer: possible fines, discipline, suspension, or revocation of a license.